What's good, everybody? You know who it is. It's your boy, Big Tank Hank, coming at you from the AQUA shop. And we're open for business. Tonight, we got a very special guest, very interesting, very intelligent. To some of you who don't know him, even those of you who do know him, you will be very surprised at the depths of this man's thinking. Let me turn the volume down on that so it don't interrupt me. We have Corvus in the house today. And, we're going to get into a little bit of his beginnings, all the way up into where he is now and how he actually got into the position that he's in. So let's all welcome him up. What's happening, sir? How you doing?
What's going on?
Oh man, not much. Looking forward to this here interaction. Are they rolling in? I see them rolling in. We're gonna say
I was telling
hello.
you. I was telling you pre-show that I had a pain in my neck. I had a literal pain in my neck earlier this week, and I somehow managed to survive it. And now I think I have recovered, which is amazing. It's amazing to be able to go to sleep and wake up and not feel like, oh, what's going on?
Pain, that proverbial pain in the neck. Don't blame it on nobody.
I had the literal pain in the neck, man.
What's going on? Michael Bolus, what noise? You have some background noise? What's going on? Let me know. All right, who all do we have in here? Who came in first? Pipex, first time seeing your name. Hello, Michael Bolus, welcome. First time seeing your name. James Shepard, welcome. Casual Aquatics, Michelle Kinsey, hello. BJ Palmer, Lonnie, aka Looney Tunes, how do, man? How do? Welcome back. S, what's going on? Hey, lurk away. As long as you're here and don't go away. All right, brother. So how you doing today, man? Your neck feeling good? How's the day been for you today?
Oh, it's been pretty good. I get to do some Saturday hanging out with my daughter. And now she has gone off with the mother for a while, and then we'll be here hanging out while she's napping. So pretty decent little Saturday. And then I got to I think I got to install an AC unit this afternoon. And then somebody needs a battery swap on like a big giant battery. Like I think it's like an 8D, I think. They're like 150 pounds. So
okay.
That's one of those times where it's like you got that brick. It's like, get in there. Don't get your finger in the way.
Sounds like a golf cart bat. Well, no, golf cart batteries are heavy.
It's like a trailer brake system.
Okay.
Yeah. Electric trailer brakes run off those big old batteries, those big deep cells.
Jeffrey Watts, what's going on?
It's Jeffrey Watts. Oh my God, he's got the wrench. That's how we know it's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's Jay Watts. Watts, I told like last night, I said I can't get him in front of the camera, so I put him to work.
That's smart.
He's good at it. So, sir, introduce yourself.
I noticed that you had D from Brooklyn on last night, and I started to listen to it.
Yeah.
I started to listen to it, and then I ran out of time. But
Mary Page. Yes, D. Good people.
Mm-hmm. I got to introduce myself. My name is Joel. Online, I go as here, I'll type in the chat. Here we go. That's me. Corvus Asin is Asin, however you say it. The end part is difficult to figure out because both words are Latin. And to give you the background, I know you wanted to know specifically, how did I come up with this name? How did that happen? It's two of the words that are descripted in Latin for blackbirds, whether it be a crow or a raven or whatever. Latin's a very confusing language, but those are both descriptive words for a bird that is black.
Okay.
And if you wanted to say a crow, you would say Corvus brachiotis, which is the second word is the identification of the genus or this. Yeah, because it's species, genus, whatever. And that's what I was initially going to go by. That became impossible because at the time, somebody else had already used that as their screen name.
Who would have thought?
When I had chosen my screen name, you have to keep in mind, this was 1993. And there was really not that many people on the internet. So you literally could just go through a list of all of the people and actually read it. There just wasn't that many people around, right? So I was like, okay, what do? I went to my Latin book and was like, okay, I'll do Corvus Oscan then, or Oscine, however you want to say it. And basically put those together. And that's been my screen name forever. And the thing is, so in 1993, 1992, around that time was the internet was bulletin boards, right? So what you would have to do is call up with your phone, right? You would take literally a phone that was plugged into the wall. To all the youngsters out there, you literally had a phone that had a wire that went and plugged into the wall. And you take that thing and you would dial a phone number, and then you would take that receiver and you would stick it on a thing called a modem. Now you would flip it around like this so that the modem could send signal to the receiver that you would talk into, and its speaker on the phone would make noises, and your modem would pick it up. So you literally would hear the weird, all that nonsense going on like over there, right? It would make all these weird shrieking, crackling, weird noises and all that stuff, and you would phone into a bulletin board. Now on the bulletin board, you could post things, but it was the jankiest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. The functionality was basically zero. You had to like figure out how to do all this stuff on your own. And the really weird thing back then was if you called into a bulletin board, your phone number was registered to the bulletin board, right? So if you put in your name was Joel and you called in from this phone number, right? The people operating the bulletin board would take that phone number. They would call the operator. It was a literal human being. They would pick up that same phone and they would push 0 on it. And they would go, hey, operator. And it would be it might be a dude, but almost every single time it was a woman. You'd be like, and she would be like, oh, hey, yeah, hi. How can I help you today? And they would go like, hey, I'm trying to find the mailing address for my buddy Joel. I got his phone number here, but I can't find his address. And they would go, oh, okay. And then you would give them the phone number. Then they would go away for a minute. Then they would come back and be like, 21159 45th Avenue, blah, 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 whatever. And just give out your address. And I will tell you, at that time in 1995, like just a couple years after the story I'm telling you, people started showing up at a friend of mine's house.
Oh.
Like uninvited people, you know? And at that point in time, we realized that it was a good idea to have used a false identifying name, because if you would have called up the operator and said, I'm looking for Corvus's address, they'd be like, what are you talking about? That's not the name I got here. That's not the name. Sorry. I don't know what are you calling about? This is weird. Why are you saying weird things? Like if you said, let me find a weird name in the chat. Okay. No, I don't see another weird name. Oh, S. Like, let's say you were trying to call up and find S's address. Like, trying to call my friend S. Need their address. It would be like, S. What do you mean? Oh, it's just the letter S. Their name's just the letter S. That's it. That's, you know. there was that point of obstruction that would at least you could maintain a level of anonymity to the point of not having interaction with people that were uninvited. And back then, there wasn't that many people on the internet. It wasn't like it is now where there's, 90% normal people and 10% weirdos. It was 90% weirdos and 10% normal people trying to figure out where you were. You know what I mean? You're trying to go like, oh, okay, who am I talking to right now? And can they be trusted? And generally, no, they couldn't be trusted. And there was a point in time where, to give like another backstory, there was me and a friend of mine used to play on what were called Mega Muds, right? So it was basically video games of the past on the internet, which were 100% text based, right? There was no graphics, nothing like that. You had a black screen and you had scrolling text for what was happening. So you had to read really fast, and you could move around in the game by using north, south, east, west, and then you could assign like, oh, I'm going to attack the dragon or something, right? You basically had to
still have to put it in text.
Oh yeah, you had to type like a maniac to try and not die. But one of the servers that we played on, one of the bulletin boards that we played on, had about 200-ish people on it that were all really local, right? Because you're calling in on your phone. Remember, you're calling in on your phone. And back then, if you called further than your area code, basically, you were paying long distance. So every minute that would go by, you would be paying like $1, right? Or whatever long distance charges. They were insane back then. And so most of the people were in the area. And so 2 of the people on that bulletin board were getting married. So there was 2 people that played this video game, were getting married, and they invited everybody to come to their wedding. They're like, hey, we got this huge property. We own a giant farm. No problem. Everybody can come. Everybody's invited. There'll be food. There'll be drinks, blah, 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 all that stuff. So we went out there. Me and a buddy of mine went out there. And to be honest with you, a beautiful property. Okay. Nice, big barn, well-kept property, this and that and the other. They had a huge barbecue set out. I mean, it was to the nines. I mean, they had like a bunch of trailer barbecues. You know what I'm talking about? The huge ones that take like 10 bags of charcoal to light one of them, and lots of good food, people hanging out. And I will tell you, some of the creepiest people I have ever met in my entire life, hands down, all partying in a barn. Okay. A friend of mine, a friend that went with me, like got in a scrap with somebody, got in a fight. Like there was like, I don't know, man. It was just the nuttiest interaction. Like at some point somebody had a gun out, blah, blah, blah. It's just like all the weirdest stuff that could possibly have happened. And we were like, oh my God, really got to go at the internet with kid gloves going on from here. And so since then, I've always just registered myself as Corvus in any of the games that I played or anything like that. I just was like, that's just what I'm going to do. And that just has kind of always been my online name, just to go. And even to this day, like if I go to a fish convention or something like that, or if I run into people that like recognize me at a store or whatever, like their initial reaction is to say, hey, Corvus, what's up, man? And it's like, all right, I know you from the internet. What's up? Like, okay. Right.
Right.
And it honestly it's a better way to interact. That if I run into somebody at the grocery store and they go, hey, Corvus, I go, oh, okay, it's somebody from the internet. They probably want to talk about fish tanks or whatever. Like, okay, cool. I'm ready to like engage with this conversation in a proper way. Right. Now, if somebody goes, hey, Joel, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't know this guy's name. I don't know what's going on. What's happening right now? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know this dude's name. Like maybe I know him from work, or shoot, where do I know this guy from? Like, should I be upset or should I be happy? Like, I don't know what's happening right now. And then it turns out it's somebody from, it's like somebody from some place I worked 10, 15 years ago or something. And it's like, oh, shoot, dude, I forgot your name. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to forget your name, but at least I can handle those interactions in a much simpler way. And so that's just kind of why I've just sort of stuck with the persona. But like if people get on my Patreon or they're in my my Discord or just in my community long enough, they go like, oh, his name's Joel. It's not like his that's his regular name. This is his online sort of persona thing. It's sort of like, Corey's name isn't Aquarium Co-op, but his channel is named Aquarium Co-op, right?
Right.
So
that's like, I forget that Facebook, my name is not a secret, but I forget that Facebook, it's around. I'm, friends with a lot of people, and Garrick will show up in the chat.
You're like, who's Garrick?
Garrick, what are you doing? How you? Oh, okay, so, maybe you.
So is Hank your middle name or no? Okay, all right. How did we get Big Tank Hank then? How did we get?
I was okay. My nickname is Big Preacher.
Okay.
So Big P. So I was Big P's Guppy Town, Big P's Endler House. This was all because I had Guppy's Endless at the beginning of my fish journey on YouTube. None of that, that just wasn't striking. Didn't, So I had a 55 gallon, I had a 60 gallon Oceanica, but I had all these little bitty fish in it, So,
right.
You have a Big Bank Hank with Sugar Hill Gang, old rap group. And there's a lot of that has become like this popular moniker for young people, selling pharmaceuticals on the street. If they have a lot of money, they'll call themselves Big Bank so-and-so.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, my fish, these big old tanks with these little, these little fish in it. Then I'm thinking, I'm sure okay, Big Bank Hank, big tank, Big Tank Hank. I don't know, just just boom, hit me. So I put it in for the first time, and every time I would show up in somebody's chat, because I wasn't streaming or anything, I'd show up in somebody's chat. Oh my God, that name, and it just was going and going and going. I'm like, okay, yes, I really like that name. I'm like, okay, I think I found something,
Yeah.
And hey,
it's one of those weird things about. It's one of those really weird things about the sort of not to like over aggrandize like the situation, but like in the capitalist society, branding does do something, right? It does interact with people in a way that's like, oh, that's catchy, and I'm used to responding to things that are catchy, right? We're sort of conditioned that way, where it's like like the most annoying song in the world is that 1877 cars for kids, right? Like that's the most annoying song that has ever been invented, but everybody knows it. And if you have a broke down car, you're like 1877 KARS, right? Like you're just gonna call them and be like, hey, I got a car out here, come get it. Like what? I don't know who you are, but you're stuck in my brain forever. So come get this car, right? But like we're all conditioned that way, like we're just environmentally put that way. We're just environmentally saturated that way to go like, well, there's that thing I recognize, and then it keeps coming at you. So that makes sense at Big Tank Hank. Like it's resonating with people, and you're like, I'm gonna run with it because why not? Like, I'm sort of the opposite. Like people see my name and they're like, I don't understand what those words are, and that makes me feel weird, and so I'm not gonna subscribe to that. This seems weird, guys. Okay. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. People that think it's super weird, I'm like, I didn't really need you around anyhow. It's all good. Which sounds rude, but yeah, I've just been on the net for like so long, and like I just highlighted a couple little like sort of anecdotal stories of early interactions with the internet and like how easily negative they could be.
Yeah.
That it's just I'm sort of standoffish of the people that are like, oh hey, I'm here to be like angry, or I'm here to be mad, or I'm here to be this, that, and the other. And it's like, no. I like the people that are like, oh my god, thanks for the thing. And I'm like, there we go. Okay, that's good. I like it. Let's stick with those people that at least could have a minor point of entry and be like, no, I'm fine with that. That's all good. So it seems to have worked fairly well as far as my interaction has gone.
Right. And you, as long as you set the narrative, you for yourself, like my scenario, that people who show up, to my chat, show up. Rico Stan, what's going on? Show up in my comments, and I'm not gonna say they've taken on my persona per se, but even kill guy, no drama, no nothing. I've had people show up in the chat and not say anything really bad, but somebody else,
Right.
hey, not here, we don't do that here. That's just because that's not me,
Right.
and that was every time I see something like that, it would make me feel, like that's kind of people right there that I need. I don't want the people to come in and pop off and cause panic and chaos, in
Right.
but yeah, that's pretty cool that worked out that way also.
Right. Yeah, and we kind of talked about it a little bit pre-show. That I've kind of changed, my stance specifically on like how I'm interacting with the internet. And I know it's definitely turned off a lot of people from the fish tank community, which, hey, it's understandable. Like, you like what you like, you don't like what you don't like, and that's fine by me. But I feel like I've been taking a stance to at least like expound some of the ideas that I have, whether they be politically motivated or not, or whatever, to hopefully like I don't think I'm ever going to get through to 100%. Like I don't have that illusion in my brain that like everyone will think that I'm the smarty McSmart man and they'll just listen to me and go along. I think I would be lucky if I was to inspire 15% of the people that interact with my stuff and go off in a positive direction. I think that realistically, that's a number that I would be like, ooh, I think I'm actually doing pretty good. Like 15, 20% of people that are like, oh my God, you know what? I never thought to look up the Federal Housing Commission from 1927 until Joel was talking about it one day, and figure out exactly what was going on in the 20s, in the 1920s. They never thought to do that until, I was listening to a guy and he was helping me out with my filter problems, and then he segued to talk about another thing that was in the news, blah blah blah, this and that. I think that's at the very least something that I could try, at least try to do, and maybe I don't do it the best that I possibly can, but I feel like I took the middle ground for like a really long time, and that was not necessarily a positive interaction for me internally, right? And it maybe is a negative interaction like financially, but it's a positive interaction for me to go like, hey, these are the things that matter to me. This is why I'm going to talk about them. And if that turns off the clientele, I guess, then so be it. But I feel like I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing from an internal standpoint. And, like having a weird name is a good way to sort of like if my channel was named Aquascape Fish Tanks, and that's the only thing that ever happens here, then I would have a general response. I think I would have a general responsibility to only ever talk about substrates or lights or CO2 and how photosynthesis processes within your aquarium at all times. But yeah, I think like I think like personally, like that's where I'm at, on the spectrum of kind of interacting at this point. And I feel like just having a weird name was good enough for me to like kind of cull a bunch of people right off the top, right out the gate, which is kind of a weird thing to say. But like I said, I've been on the internet for so long that, it's just one of those things.
But I mean, you have some good stuff, and just in general on your channel, and that alone causes people, because it's you created this, which causes people to be more interested in who you are as an individual. And again, like the name not dragging them in one certain direction and them upset because that's not what they're getting all the time.
Right.
But you have good enough, good enough stuff for that to happen. I would like to think, because that was kind of my thing. Yeah, again, I started out, I was telling you with the guppy, Hitler, things in my name. But I'm not the video guy. I'm the hey, someone loves you. You're not alone. Come sit down, take a rest, tell me what you're going through, guy. So I don't make, people found out that you're not gonna go to my channel and just get this bunch of videos about fish. I'm gonna let you see my fish, but I'm gonna do a live stream and I'm gonna tell you that you're not by yourself. That in this community, there's somebody that cares about you, and everybody should be that way. And early on, I had people trying to, I want to be respectful, giving me their feelings of how they think my channel should go.
Right.
Judging from my previous, my early on stuff, my voice, hey man, if you would do this and then if you would do that, it would be more. And I'm like, that's not, no, because I wouldn't feel, you wouldn't get, it wouldn't be genuine. You could tell it was, put together, and I get a little lazy if it's not passionate. If I don't, if I don't feel it, I get a little lazy, and you'll be able to tell. So I would like to think that whatever little growth, like I'm not looking for no money, nothing, that's all good. And if it comes with it, but I want it to be natural. I want it to happen. Again, like, because I am a spiritual person. You speak of when scripture telling you about building on firm, on firm ground. I would like a good foundation. I want to be starting this with a good foundation and build on top of that. And I, I hope to think that I'm doing that too, for the most part.
Well, yeah, and I think like that's like ultimately my my focus right now has been like how how do we address some of the larger issues with trying to build a community that isn't just that I guess like isn't just structured for, I guess, I don't know. I don't really know how to put it into words, but like, how are we gonna build a community that is large enough and able to actually do something, as opposed to just letting people fall by the wayside and allowing people to fall into, bad ideals, right? It's sort of like bad ideology. And how do we like have a community that can actually address some of that stuff while also, helping somebody get the proper water conditioner for where they live, right?
Right.
And that stuff's that all that function is very important to me, because that's what can help change somebody's life day to day, and not just hopefully like just answer a question for somebody, but actually help them get from A to Z and not just jump everything in between, right? That often happens in the fish tank community is that somebody will go, all my fish died, what do I do? And you're like, what do you mean? What you want me to tell you what to do? Like, I don't know what's going on. What do you mean? You just told me everything died. Well, I guess net
How
them
much
out
do
of.
you have left to do?
Well, I just like net them out of the tank. I put them in the compost. I guess. Like I don't. Like I mean, it sounds like the rude thing, but that would be the answer to what you. The question in which you just asked me was like, all my fish are dead. What do I do? I compost them and then drain the tank and empty it and put it up on Craigslist for sale. I don't know. But like the question you just asked me was without any information whatsoever. I'm supposed to just tell you what to do now. You know, it's like, what do you want me to come over and test your water for you? Like you should be testing your water. You should have some responsibility for taking care of your animals. But there's no way to really like have that conversation with somebody who is going to skip all of the steps. You know what I'm saying? And and like, how do you have that conversation with a million people, right? Like, how do you have that conversation? Like, I can't specifically sit down with every single person on the planet or whatever and have a 2-hour conversation to find out that like you've never tested your water supply, like coming out of the wall, like you never even bothered to test it. Like, why not? And it's like, well, it's fine. It comes out of the tap and I just put it in the tank. And you're like, well, what is it? I'm like, well, it's water. I'm like, no. Like, we understand it's H2O. It has a chemical, it has a molecular structure to it, but what else is in there? Like, so what is this water? Because you take some water off of Mount Everest and bring it down and melt it. You take some water out of the Atlantic Ocean and you take some water out of the Salton Sea in Southern California. They're all water. Those are all water. What's the chemical makeup? Like, this one has tons of salt in it. We can't put the fish in there, right? Well, how would you know? You know, and you know, so it's like with just that basic like animal husbandry it's like incredibly difficult to have those conversations with people, and if you're not like hopefully engaging with the people that are following your channel in a way to go like, hey, you got to take the time to start to figure out doing all of these steps. You know, like how are you realistically engaging with the community? And so once you start to think about those steps, I start to think about like, okay, what do people have available that they could possibly do without an extreme like financial investment, for instance, right? Is like, what kind of water tests are cheap enough for the average person to be able to go like, well, I can save up $12. I can get those water tests. Then I can start testing my tap water. I can start testing my tank water, right? And start to figure out like, okay, I'm starting to get an understanding of like what the water does from my tap. Then I put it in my tank and then some time goes by, like what's going on. And you know, so that's one of those reasons that like I haven't made produced videos in a while, is because these are the thoughts that I'm working on, trying to produce a video that has that conversation in it without sounding judgmental, and also it within a certain timeline that people are willing to absorb, right? Because you know, I mean, I could make 2-hour podcasts like every day, realistically. Like if there was a market for me to do 5 days a week, a 4-hour long show where I just answer questions all day or something like that, and that was my job, I could do that. I could do that job. There doesn't seem to be a market for that. And there doesn't seem to be like a big enough community to back that up. So, you know, it's either it's one of two things. Like we got to build the community and then educate the community, and so that when the community continues to grow, the people in it can educate the new people. You know, in a way that is not like outrageous or judgmental or creating a conflict within the community as it grows, right, and as it expands and reaches more people. So I mean, that's realistically the goal that I'm working on. Like, how do I produce that? Like, how does that thing get made and doesn't only interact that it doesn't interact in a way that I think is unhealthy, right? So like that's kind of why, you know, people are like, don't talk politics on your fish channel. And it's like, well, it's a live stream. I'm going to be on here for a couple hours, and you know, I'm realistically going to figure out a way to start to talk about the things that are going on, and also give help to people that are looking for an answer for their fish tank, right? You know, does that make sense? I don't know.
No, it does. It does. Because they're trying to figure out, because when you're thinking about the long podcast style, keeping the people there to get to what it is you want them to hear. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think and I think the reality with that is that like, to a degree, like I get a decent amount of feedback from my community in the way that's like, you know, I've got like probably a total of about 500 people that regularly interact with my community, right? In a real like interactive way. Like they're not just like passively kind of wandering around, you know what I mean? Like it's like the people that are in the front rows, you know. And I do get a good amount of feedback from the things that I do bring up and the topics that I bring up, and the point that if I make so for instance, like you mentioned Facebook earlier, it's like if I make a Facebook post, I'm going to get really weird feedback, right? Because you're talking about like one sentence that you put together that's like I don't know, just some random thing where you're like, tax the rich, right? You know, just use a random example. You know, you're going to get a lot of weird feedback that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like it doesn't have any context. Like it doesn't have somebody like, you know, I listened to you talk about this thing for 10 minutes and then I kind of thought about it a little bit and then I responded, right? Which is generally the kind of feedback I get from the sort of tight-knit community was like, I heard you talking about this thing. Like you might be wrong about this part, but you were overall pretty correct. And then I went to go kind of like read up on some of this stuff and hey, here's this thing. And then here's this thing. And then whether it's fish tanks or not, it gives me a good opportunity to kind of like vet whatever it is that I'm thinking about. So something that would be like non-political would be like aquarium substrates for your Planet Aquarium, right? There's a ton of brand loyalty in the United States, right? Like corporations have done tons of studies on if people are buying the same thing, like what pressure will stop them from buying the same thing. And one of the best interactions that almost everybody in the United States has is the gas station or convenience store or the bodega or whatever you call it in your part of the United States. Is it a convenience store? Whatever. People will continue to go to the same convenience store even if the prices go up by over 200%, just because they're loyal to a store that they walk into and buy things at and then leave.
Yes.
Totally bizarre, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, here's a $3 candy bar. They'll still buy the $3 candy bar because it was like, oh, well, that's the store I go to. So I still just go to that store and I still just buy the same thing. And so like aquarium substrates have that same, and aquarium companies, manufacturers and stuff like that have that weird same brand loyalty thing where if I come out and I say ADA Amazonia is the greatest substrate ever created, I will get 90 responses that you're an idiot, blah blah blah. Use this. I use dirt from outside my backyard. Blah blah blah. All this stuff. And I'll get one person that's like, "Oh, I used ADA and it worked pretty good, and it seems to still work good." But I'll get 90 responses of people that are like, "You're an idiot. Oh my god, it's unbelievable that you would even say anything." Blah. Okay. Well, most of those people, if I was to continue to have the interaction with them, you will generally find out that they're brand loyal to a fault of just another brand, right? And like a perfect instance would be like Landon's Aquasoil, Fluval's Aquasoil, Oliver Knott has an Aquasoil. There's so many of them, and you just keep listing them all off. But here's the weird thing: is that they all come from one production facility in Japan, right? Now they actually have another production facility now, but it's the same company. It's just, we did another one 50 miles away, right? And they're all just slightly different formulas made by a company and put into a different bag, but people will like they'll pull a knife on somebody because this is the best Aquasoil. You understand? It comes in the blue bag, okay? The bag is blue. It's the best, and so it's like, how do you navigate all of these kinds of like interactions with specific to American customers, right? Like, how do we navigate these kinds of conversations in a way that avoids them from becoming into some kind of crazy conflict? That's the quandary that I'm trying to figure out now. Is like, how do I engage with a group of people that like immediately come in with all of their own thought processes that might not even have been well thought out? Like, all my fish are dead. What do I do? Right. How I would have that answer, I don't know. I don't know how I would have that answer. But like one of the videos I did a while ago, like, I don't know, 3-4 years ago or something like that, was I literally bought the Fluval stratum and then the fluorite, and then I opened the bags up and I put them in the same measuring container, right? And over the years, I've gotten so many comments from people that like, Aquasoil is so expensive. That's outrageous. You're like some kind of baller throwing money into your fish tank. You're just like, what are you doing? Like, you're making everybody else like feel bad, blah, 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 all this kind of weird stuff. And it's like, okay, well, let's do a volume comparison on the current pricing, right? And the reality is the vulcanized crushed rock, like EcoComplete, like the fluoride stuff and all that, it's just half of a bag sold at half of the price, right? So the volume by price comparison is exactly the same. It's just that the volume of 9 liters versus 4.5 liters, right? The crushed vulcanized stuff is half the size of a bag, and it's like half the price. It's like $21 or whatever. And then the Aquasoil is 9 liters, but it's it's like $43. So it's basically, you're just going to get 2 bags in one at the exact same price. You're just going to have to buy that much. And the funny thing is that like I get all these emails from people like, "Oh my god, I never even thought to do the volume comparison, and this and that and the other thing, and I didn't even realize it was the same price. Like, maybe I should just buy the Aquasoil like you've been recommending people to do for years and years and years now, after testing all sorts of stuff for years and years and years to try and save money, and actually wasting a ton of money in the process of testing all of these other ideas, right? It's like that, but that video is like 9 minutes long, so it doesn't engage with enough of the internet audience for it to get natural or like naturally put out there. Like I could take like $1,000 and force YouTube to put that video into people's feeds, right? Like I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, you open up YouTube and you're like, why is Jimmy Fallon on my recommended video? Like, what is this? Like, why is that at the top of, like, I don't watch late night shows. What is this? Like, why is there a late night show as the first video recommended? Like, what is this? Well, it's because those companies pay for them to show up in your feed, right? And I could do the same thing. Like, I could literally take some money and force that video to go out there, but it's not going to reach the organic growth because it's too long. And that's realistically like the big problem with that. And I literally should just make a 45-second version of that can come up on somebody's shorts and they can like, I've watched it in 45 seconds and now I'm good, right? And then hopefully they'll have somehow absorbed the information, I guess. I don't know. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of responses of like, well, you've, you know, it's like, well, you know, CChem is the greatest company that's ever, you know, existed, you know, and it's like, I like CChem. I think they're a good company. Do they have some bad products? Yeah. All companies have some bad products. Like they all do. They all can't be a 5-star A++++ products, right? Like there's going to be some variance in the things that they carry, right? Some of them are going to not be that good. You know, but it's like if you don't have the information, like how are you making a decision when it comes to doing things? Is sort of like that's the big conundrum I'm trying to figure out of like you know, how do I produce something that really does like organically engage and get legs and also spread information in a way that's absorbable to the average American, realistically. It's an unfortunate thing is that like I think it's like something like 60% of people that watch my channel are American. So it's like, I have to take that into consideration, I think. And then like 12% are Canadian, you know? So it's like most everybody's in North America that's watching my channel. So I should try to figure out how to do that, you know?
Then it'll put you in a precarious position simply because of the understanding of how we are as far as being sheepish in the way we follow, or because very few people make those decisions based on any type of personal investigation. It's always, well, what do you have? What do you have? Okay, that's what you use, you know, and then they just do it. Or who going back to the brand or type of term that Jeffrey used, who made it? Okay, going to you speaking on nobody 100% across the board has, you know, all winning products. You know, there are some bad products, but you'll hear some people speaking of their particular brand that they favor as though there are no flops, you know.
Right.
There's no flops. Everything's good.
Well, yeah, and it's a weird perspective of like dealing with the I guess that's the thing is like I don't know if I'm necessarily trying to I don't know that I'm necessarily trying to engage with the I guess like traditionally educated, right? Like if there's a marine biologist, God, dude, I don't have to tell them anything. You know, like I mean, we could clearly have a discussion. We could certainly talk about pros and cons of this and that and the other thing, right? But you know, people that have a traditional education like that, they don't need my help. They don't need to know my experience. They would at best be showing up for entertainment, right? Like they might be looking to like, oh, how pretty is the video? Like, oh, that's really pretty. I never thought of that. Oh, I never but they're really not going to be showing up to my YouTube channel to be like, I don't know, maybe this guy's going to talk about covalent bonds today, and I'm just going to laugh in his face and tell him that that's second year, like, why would they be there? And the unfortunate thing is that most people don't have availability to that traditional education to already show up with just a head full of knowledge and be like, oh, I would like to get interested. I'm interested in this thing. I'd like to maybe give it a try or something. Most of the people that are going to be engaging are, people that probably didn't spend a lot of time going to college, learning, biology and chemistry and all of that kind of stuff. It's mostly blue collar people that we're going to be interacting with. And if we're all being honest, most of us blue collar people didn't spend a ton of time screwing around working on our master's degree, right? To just have a good time with a hobby, right? And so I'm trying to figure out how to like squish all that stuff in and not lose my mind at the same time, trying to produce something that's like a magical unicorn that doesn't exist, So I mean that's a real big part of what I'm trying to work with in 2021. Like I think it was
a lot on yourself.
It was a big eye opener last year with the pandemic, just how, I mean, to be realistic, like just how fragile the world is, right? Just how fragile our supply chain management, our ability to pass information around, our ability to understand information. I mean, I don't know how many weird conversations I had last year with like QAnon type people that were like literally going like, well, here's blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's a completely fabricated, like made up, that's not real, And it's like, well, I was listening to this guy and he was asking questions, and it's like, and to me, like, it was a big eye opener of going like, a lot of people are being persuaded by some really bad, I don't know, information, right? And how could I be somebody that wants to build a community, who wants to help people have a better understanding of not only like human history but American history, and how that has put us where we are today, and like how we could possibly start to implement community building and things like that so that we can move past and spread information in a way that is like, here's the knowledge. No matter what you're going to look at, this is provable and backed and has citation and has sources and like where this is coming from, right? Instead of just going, well, I shop at 7-Eleven, so it must be the store for me, right? Or I shop at the Circle K or whatever, and so it's clearly the best store because I go there, and how to kind of like bring more critical thinking to our community, so that when things like a pandemic happen, people are already working on critical thinking and can just go, okay, this is how I'm going to work through my process of making a decision based on, I've received terrible information. I'm going to verify whether or not it's true or not, or at least there's enough evidence to say it's this way or that. And then I'm going to move forward on making a decision versus, some dummy named Corvus made a video about how this fish is rad, so I better order up 100 of them and throw them in my fish tank, right? You know, and I think that I think that, like, if you were to roll around in my headspace, that's probably kind of the best way I could put it out there, like verbally, of just like, that's a lot of the stuff that's going on in my head and things that I'm trying to work on, so that I generally feel better about like the presentations that I'm putting out there. Yeah, I think so. And Fish Tropic keeps saying the blue pill. I don't know why you keep saying the blue pill. I can't remember. I can't remember blue pilled or red pilled or black pilled or whatever. There's so many of them now. Let's look it up. I'm gonna look up the blue pill definition.
What movie was that? With Keanu Reeves or somebody was it?
Well, it was the Matrix, right?
Matrix. There you go. Yeah, I don't know which
pill. Easy way out and choosing. Okay, so the blue pill is taking the easy way out, choosing to ignore the harsh reality and live in blissful ignorance. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in bed and believe whatever you want to believe. Yeah, I guess I can see why he's saying that. I can see why Fish Tropic's saying that there are a lot of blue-pilled people in the United States. That's for sure. But on a funnier note, I will mention that I used to live like the back fence of this house. I rented this house, and the back fence, there was a movie theater right over the back fence of that house. So there was like a little bit of parking lot. Boom. There's like a Regal movie theater right there. So I would go watch movies all the time. It's like I didn't even have to drive anywhere. It was literally just like pull, and this was newspaper days. So like I'd pull up the newspaper, like there's a movie. I haven't seen it. It's airing in 20 minutes. You know, like I'm going to go to the bathroom, go out the back fence and go watch a movie, you know. Like it's just like I got 2 hours to kill, like whatever, I'm gonna go watch a movie. Now I didn't own TV at the time. I didn't own any kind of like, I didn't even own a TV. I had like a computer that I could basically email off of, and that was pretty much it. And so I had not seen a single advertisement for the Matrix. I hadn't seen a billboard for the Matrix. I hadn't seen like a trailer, none of that stuff. I hadn't seen any of that. And I literally walked in at the beginning of the Matrix. The theater was basically sold out. I had to sit right down in the front, like the very front where you gotta look up at the screen. I watched that movie and I straight up walked out of there like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, because I didn't even know what I was getting into. And I literally was walking out of there with all of these like crazy thoughts of like, oh my God, like, are we in a simulation? I don't know what's happening right now. Because I was just like really immersed in the story. I come out with like about a billion questions of like, oh my God, what is this world? What is this world we're living in? I don't know what's happening right now. It didn't last too long, but it was hilarious interaction with having seen that movie, because I did not know what I was getting into. I did not know what I was going to go watch. And you know, when the Matrix came out, the effects in that you'd never really seen a lot of the effects that were in that film, and they were really over the top for the time. Right. You can go back and watch it now, and you're kind of like, oh, this is sort of cheesy, you know. It's like if you go back and watch Jaws, like people were straight up like people were straight up, they needed to wear diapers to go see Jaws. You know what I'm saying? Like people were crapping themselves in the theater. Jaws was that scary, and literally now you go watch it and you're like, oh, that shark's a robot. Like that's not even a real shark. Maybe you should have gotten a real shark.
Yeah, I think that's when the seemingly conspiracy theories got their big role. You know, the momentum rolling into today. You know, was like blue pill, red pill. Oh my God, what? So if I
Right.
go to sleep, will I wake up and yeah,
It's a weird it's a weird situation. But I also like it has been so to a lot of the people out there that have mentioned like the internet has done this. This is what's going on. Blah blah blah. I want you guys to understand that this is nothing new in America. This has been going on since the snake oil days. All right. There used to be a guy who would roll into town with his horse and buggy and his horses and his wagon, and he would stand out in town and he would sell you the cure-all. This is the cure-all that will fix you. It'll fix all your problems. I mean, needless to say, it was like full of all sorts of drugs and whatnot. So you probably were high as a kite, and it probably felt fine for a little while. So it probably brought some validity to this guy's story. But this has been going on for a really long time. And to tell you, to stick with sort of my experience stories, to sort of explain like my weird background a little bit. So, on my father's side, they're Mormons. Just no way else to explain it. These people were Mormons. My grandparents were involved in the Mormon church, and when my father became of age, he essentially joined the military to no longer be involved with that specific church. There's not anything. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anybody's churches. I'm just explaining the situation. So to give you a little bit of a backstory, both of my grandparents, my grandfather was a captain in World War II. My grandmother is still alive, believe it or not. She's like 98 now. And she is very, very, very with it. Like she knows you can sit down and have the same conversation you and I are having right now. She knows what's going on. She is like a she's like a historical reference. She literally, I mean, she can literally tell you what getting over the Great Depression was like, because she was in high school.
like, right.
It's insane. So I'm going to do some interviews with her and film some interviews with her this summer, to kind of talk about her personal experience with having been involved with some of this stuff. And my uncle Hal, who is dead, so he won't be offended by this conversation because he is no longer alive. Basically moved from the city part of Idaho up to where the mountain people live, right? And he owned a restaurant, he built a hotel, he built an RV park, and some other stuff. Now, he lived out there in the middle of nowhere in Idaho where less than favorable organizations reside. And at a certain point in time in the mid 90s, my Uncle Hal came to my grandmother. My grandmother and grandfather went, I think he came down into town, I think is what she was telling me. But the bigger part of the story is that Hal came to tell my grandparents, who, by the way, were alive during the war, and my grandfather, who was in the war, that the Holocaust was not real, that it didn't really happen. Right? And you're literally talking about a guy who's explaining to his parents a thing that they were involved in, one of the most insane things that have ever happened to the world, just didn't happen. Like as if my grandfather like wasn't in the war. Like what
What's gonna take it, right?
And so you're talking about a guy who literally was exposed to some information from some less than genuine people, very disingenuous people, that convinced my uncle somehow that the Holocaust didn't happen, that everything that happened in World War II was just basically, the Allies being mad and trying to take over the world or whatever. And whatever the nonsense was that he came up with. I spoke with my grandmother. My grandma, I got this story secondhand because my uncle's dead. So she basically was telling me after the fact, a couple years after he passed away. And, because I was trying to talk with my grandmother about, you really need to start thinking about some of the news sources that you're listening to. My grandmother is very old. She's very intelligent. And she's very with it still. Like it's very interesting to talk with her because somebody that's almost 100 years old and you can literally just back and forth. She knows what's going on. She's lucid. She has a great memory. It's very interesting to have somebody that you can literally open up the history books and go like, hey, what was going on in 1955? And she can be like, well, we had moved from over here to over there and we just got a new house and and your father was, he was like 10 or 5 or whatever, and blah, 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 blah. And she'll tell you all about it, and actually has, she was a secretary for the local governing body. Right. So she was a secretary for like the county, but the county had the state seat in it and everything. So the governor was there, blah, 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 all that stuff. And she was a secretary that worked there for years and years and years and worked in all the accounting and knew all that kind of stuff. So she's definitely been somebody who's been involved, at least peripherally, of kind of being a fly on the wall and knowing all this weird stuff that's been going on. Right. But for somebody like that to explain that their son moved somewhere, got some information and was completely convinced that like, oh, well, let's just throw all this evidence out the window because you met some, I'm just going to make up a name here, Steve. Like you met some guy named Steve who just convinced you, oh, hey, look, I found this weird, obscure thing that says, oh, it was all fake. Okay. But never mind the hundreds of millions of examples of against that. Right. So, that's something that has been kind of rattling around in my brain for a few years now. And it's something that I'm sort of consistently thinking about of like, okay, how could somebody like get to that point and accidentally fall down this rabbit hole? It just because something was presented to them, like probably emphatically. It was like somebody was just passionate about how they were presenting it to him, and maybe they were persistent because of the interaction that they were having, right? Over and over again with, I'm sure whoever my uncle was meeting with or talking with or whatever. So like how, if I'm the person that is trying to convey my thoughts and my experiences and my stuff to other people, like how can I interact in a way that doesn't lead people down this weird thought process of like, as was mentioned earlier, the Circle K is the only store, this is the only way to do it. AQUA Malik says, I know a lot of people who believe in things that are totally contradicting to historical records. Yeah. And it's weird. I don't know. And I don't know, I don't know if there are very many people in the fish community that necessarily like think that whatever it is that I'm thinking about is really that important, because almost every creator I know are more like, hey, keep your politics out, keep your this out, keep that out, keep all that stuff out, because eventually if you just make these like goofy videos, you'll be popular enough, then you'll be able to make some kind of change, right? And the idea that I would and let's just say, let's take the $1 million mark, right? Like, let's say I wait until I have $1 million before I decide to tell people that, like, hey man, SNAP is a very important public program that should be continued and in fact expanded upon, right? And somebody would be like, SNAP, what are you talking about? You talking about food stamps? Oh, no, we can't have food stamps. Then people that don't work are going to have food. And you're like, would you rather people not have food? Like, would you rather have starving people? Like, what exactly is the plan, right? So
yeah.
whether or not that stuff is important to somebody or not, like, the idea to me of waiting until I have 1 million subscribers before boy howdy, I tell people that there should be healthcare for people, right? And then I'll do it. When I get to 1 million subscribers, then I'll tell people that we should have sensible gun control, right? That once I do that, then I'll wait. Which,
because the truth is only worth hearing then.
Right. Is that's when you do it? Because Jeff Bezos doesn't care about anything, right? Realistically, he doesn't. He cares about his business. That's all he cares about. Maybe he cares about rocket ships. I don't know. But it's pretty clear that that guy has all of the power to really inflict some change in the world and doesn't seem to be on his to-do list. His to-do list is crush other companies, grow my company, continue to grow my company, maybe make a rocket ship, and then maybe I'll just move to Mars, and then you guys can all just stay here, right? So I think that, like, there are very few examples of people taking the path of, oh, once I'm just so successful, then I'll be generous with my time. Then I'll be generous with my thought process. Then I'll be generous with the things that I believe in and blah, blah, blah. Right? Like, I don't think that, from my standpoint, that's the way to approach the world. And I don't think that that's a way to approach doing something like YouTube, engaging with a large audience, with putting your ideas out there of just like, well, once I'm independently wealthy, then I'll tell people that I believe in things because of this is the evidence, and maybe we could have a conversation about what evidence you have, and maybe I will change my mind. But you know, like, I just think it's important that those are my values, and that, like, I would like to put those out there before it's like, oh, well, now I can be trendy because I have a Lamborghini, right? Or whatever, because I think that's the reality of the like people that are what's the word I'm thinking of here? It's like, what is it? It's like false social credit, right? Like, it's like a super wealthy person just like, oh, now I'm gonna go work over at this charity over here. It's like, what, are you bored? Is that the deal? Because now you have $100 million. Like, you could have easily done this at $20 million. You could have done this at $10. Like, you don't need to acquire some kind of wealth and fame and all that stuff before you could be a good person, right?
Right. Fewer people are going to actually listen to you at that kind of stuff.
Well, I think it's like,
real when it comes to real issues.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the thing is that like you're gonna wait till later. You're gonna go wait till later to be a good person. Like I don't think that's the case. And like I've had like a pretty weird life, man. Like I've had a lot of weird interactions with the earth and with society. Like things have gone a little bit weird. I know that I regularly talk about my sobriety. Like, I'm over 7 years now sober. In a program and doing what I can to help other people like get sober, or at least think about getting sober, or if sobriety is not for you and you're not having a problem, then do your own thing. It's all good, right? And I pretty regularly talk about all of this stuff because I don't think that like me waiting to change my interaction with the world, right, is going to be positive. And just in the hopes that like, well, maybe someday I'll have 1 million followers and then I'll tell them that it's good to help people, right? Like, why wouldn't you do that at 1? Why wouldn't you do that at 0? It definitely makes it feel like it definitely makes it feel like it's not something that they actually believe in, but if only you're super successful and rich, then you could tell people, hey, I believe in helping other people. Like, and I think that the reality is like, for me and my own perspective is that like, I would really, it would be preferential to me that no one would ever question my, like, whatever it is, like my morality or my convictions or my thought process or any of that kind of stuff. That's worth more to me than just being like, I'm financially successful. Check it out. I got a big car, whatever. That's just not that important to me. I don't know. It's weird. I've gotten on a weird thought process here.
It's okay. We're taking it all in. But I have thought often about going all the way back to people saying on your fish channel, talk about this, talk about that. I've thought about starting another page altogether where I can open up more. Because I mean, if you think about it, have you seen any of my periodic Facebook posts where if something comes up that needs to be thought or spoke on, I'll put my view, boom, put it out there and let people comment, and I'll have the discussions in the comments, whereas I don't really much on here, but I would like to. I mean, I actually would like to, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's a stat.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, I've had that conversation with so many people that I am advised by, right? So like, people that are more successful than me have been gracious enough to give me advice and say, hey, you really got to think about what you're going to do, because if you're looking to do financial success, what you need to do if that's what it is, which I know how to produce those videos. I know how to make that content. I know how to go shoot stuff with famous people and then tag the famous people and then have them blah, 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 and do that. I know how to do that. I 100% know how to do that. I've watched lots of people do it. I've interacted with people doing it, and I don't personally feel good interacting with the world in that way. And I don't really want to. I don't have a desire to go like, I want people to give me the money because then I'll go shoot a video with I don't know, whatever famous person. We'll use a non-fish tube person. Let's say who's that? Tom Cruise. There we go. We'll just use Tom Cruise because whatever. Okay, no one cares about Tom Cruise for real, right? So it's like, oh, I'm gonna go shoot videos with Tom Cruise because then I'll be famous, right? And like, I don't think there's a positivity to interacting that way. And I've gotten advice from really well-to-do people that they know that's like, hey, if you're going to go down this road, this isn't going to be the financial direction. But if you honestly feel like this is what you want to do, then you should probably go for it. And you'll have to see whether or not, or the advice to me was like, you'll have to see whether or not you're sleeping at night is better than, I guess, making more money. And I can I can say specifically from my own interactions that me sleeping at night is better than me just getting some money, right? And you know, it's one of those things, like I give away most of my money anyhow. Most of the money I make, I donate it. I could make videos of me driving around and giving stuff to homeless people, but I also feel like that in its own right defeats the purpose of doing something good, where it's like, oh, I'm going to financially benefit from making this video about these hobos under the bridge here. I brought them food. I'm a good guy. Right? Like, I could make that video. I have the equipment. I have the editing skills. I have a channel with enough people, and I bet people would promote it, and they'd probably put it out there. But that to me is like robbing from people that don't have any representation, right? Like, I could go interview a bunch of the homeless. I mean, I'm using the term homeless, but they're like degenerate junkies, you know, like they don't have the ability to say, no, don't interview me because if you give somebody like that $20, that's the difference between eating today and not eating, and a lot of other stuff too. That they'll probably do just about anything, right? And to be taking advantage of people like that is one of the most deplorable things. Like, taking advantage of people that have no ability to say no is one of the it's one of the most disgusting things I could possibly think to do. So there was one time I took a camera out with me and was like, oh, I'm going to film, and maybe this will inspire some people or something like that. And I couldn't even edit it because I was like, oh my God, I feel this is disgusting. This is disgusting.
And it would definitely be taken the wrong way.
Right. And there's just no, like, how do you, like, at the time I didn't even, I couldn't even think of like how to really edit it together to make it even be a presentation of like, other than let's take advantage of poor people. Let's take advantage of people that like have no say. And, like, whether or not people want to do that or not, I mean, Mr. Beast has 20 million people or whatever the subscribers following him now because he would take advantage of poor people. I like Mr. Beast. He seems like a reasonable, nice guy or whatever. But to take wild advantage of like pizza delivery people and clearly people in the service industry and homeless people that are just outside so that you could become famous on YouTube, it's like, I don't know how that dude sleeps at night. And some people would say like, oh, on a bed of gold or, gold feather, whatever, $1 million bed or whatever. Like, okay, sure. At the end of the day,
they're pointing out to you exactly why, because they're one of the ones that are supporting that.
Right. Well, that's probably true. That's probably true. But like I feel like my interaction in the world has to have some like I have to have morals and I have to stick to them. Otherwise, it's just a hollow experience for me, and I don't know how else to interact that way. And I know that like a ton of people way more successful than me gave me the advice that like, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You're going to be sabotaging yourself. You're going to be this and that. But the reality is like the advice that I got from realistic people that have no skin in the game whatsoever, right? I'm talking about people, people that advise me in life that could seriously be from the outside looking in and go, yeah, but what's going to be more beneficial for your life, right? What is going to be more benefit than it is extraction, right? And, so that's kind of where I just sort of just started to kind of weave in things. Like today is Juneteenth, and I know that a lot of people out there are just learning about it for the first time in their life. It's the first time that they've ever even heard of it. It's one of the few times I've ever seen the Senate unanimously vote for a holiday that turns out is kind of superficially applied. It's like it's a national holiday, but it's not. It's gonna be observed, and I guess we're gonna see what happens here. But I don't know. I feel like it's too little, and we discussed this a little bit at the beginning, where I was like, we have Independence Day, we have Memorial Day, we have Labor Day, we have Thanksgiving is a holiday. Like we have all these holidays that we're supposedly celebrating being American, and yet none of them are a voting day, are a day that we vote what is happening with our governing body. Like, we don't have that. And the unfortunate thing is that we see a big disproportion in the well-to-dos voting versus the poor people not having the ability to vote, right?
Right.
And
they're now trying to make it even harder.
And now they're trying to make it harder, I live in Washington State, where you can register to vote online. You sign up for your ability to vote. Your voting pamphlet is mailed to you basically a week before you're going to vote on stuff, where you can look up who these people are. You can look through what these votes or what these bills are that you're going to be voting on. You can find out who's backing these bills that may or may not be going through. Like you may or may not want British Petroleum, otherwise known as BP, by the way, the gas station company, passing a bill in your state. You might not want them passing laws that are all shrouded in lawyer talk that you're going to find out 5 years down the road is actually really bad for your community. But in Washington State, we get that ahead of time. And then when you vote, it's mailed to your house. All of the stuff that you're going to be voting on is mailed to your house. You open it up. Everybody in your district is going to be on there. You're going to be able to vote. You'll be able to sit down at your dining room table. You're going to be able to look up and go like, who was that? And I'm making up a name here. And I almost always go with Steve. Who was that Steve Stevenson? Hold on a minute. I was wondering about that Steve guy. Hold on. Let me look up his platform. Let me find out what he's about. Let me check his political backers. Let me see what's going on before I fill in this little hole here that says that Steve guy is the one I want to vote for. You can look through all that stuff. You can take your time and do it. Sign it. You get a little tab. You pull the tab off of it. You put it in your anonymous ballot. It goes in the other envelope. Then it goes off into the mail. Gets mailed out. You have a little tracking slip that you can look up, just like if you put your fish in the mail with FedEx or the United States Postal Service or whatever. You can look up the tracking thing to see, oh, it arrived and it has been open, and they've followed my vote. And we're able to do that in Washington, and there's not a lot of other states that are doing that. Other states, you got to show up on a Tuesday at 7 p.m. at some school you've never, some elementary school you never been to, or some other church you never been to, or whatever, some weird place you never been. You show up. oh, we need a driver's license and a credit card, and we got to make sure. Hold on, we got to check your shoe size, make sure you got the right shoes on before you go in here to vote. Like, the hell's going on, man? Like, what is happening here? But it's I mean, it's nice to see something like Juneteenth is at least being recognized at this point. But I feel like we have a lot of steps. We have a lot of steps to be making still. You know. 503 Aquatics. Today's my birthday, and I'm doing nothing all day except my son is taking me to dinner. That's not bad. My daughter's not old enough to take me to dinner yet.
Happy birthday, Shanna.
Yeah, happy birthday. What did 503 say? I like to do secret good things. I don't want people to know. I don't want credit or thanks. I just want help wherever I can. Bragging about it ruins it. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Bragging about it does ruin it. That's true. That's true. Yep.
Brother, it's time for me to cut the stream short. I got some things I need to be going to do.
Cool.
And we normally hit an hour, but it was so interesting. I was trying to let it go as far as I could, but I can hear in my headphones this chime, coming from somebody on the other side of the wall.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you start getting that bell, that means it's time to go, right?
Yes. But yeah. Before I even read it, it has a special tone to it. I know exactly where it's coming from.
That makes sense. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to come on. And
it was a pleasure having you here. You're gonna have to come back.
Yeah,
and we're gonna have to do like a one of my 10:30s. It's late, but that one I can kind of run. I can kind of run.
Oh, run late. Yeah. Well, luckily for me, that's only 8:30, so it's actually a reasonable time for me to do
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool because I have some people. Oh man, when I have my guests from Australia and India, they're like, oh man, that's. I'm like, I said, how about the 1:30? Oh, that's 3 in the morning. I don't.
Well, that's a weird thing. Like, I regularly do a stream on Tuesdays with Dr. Black. And he's in Australia, so it's like but for him it's like tomorrow at 11 a.m. or something, and for me it's like it's 7 p.m. and we're it's so weird, but it's kind of the best time to do it because we're both like awake and aware and have time to like talk for a while, So
right, yeah, I had Dr. Black on, and as a matter of fact, me watching your streams and whatnot, you guys remind me. Of each other. Just in the, there's nothing wrong with being intelligent and slightly eclectic because I've been called that. And I was telling you beforehand in the stream that I don't get a chance to really use my brain. I say it like that, because you can feed fish and change water, so much till after a while, again, you're robotic. When there's more things going on in life that you can try to avoid them as much as you want. They're still in your face. They don't go anywhere, regardless if you talk about them or not.
That's right.
And I thank you very much. I thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on, man. And yeah, just hit me up and we'll schedule our follow-up. Once we get all those comments, and the likes and stuff, and then you get all these subscribers coming over to you. Don't subscribe to my channel. I'm too busy. If anybody's watching this, don't subscribe. I'm too busy. I got too many people already.
Yeah, just come on over. I'll take the rest of you. Hey, I'll take.
That's right.
It's all right.
Hank will take care of you.
Thank y'all for coming through and spending this time with us, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all very much. Y'all have a good day. Love somebody. Take care of those fish. And we're out.